Why do women have been forgotten in the economic history?
I think for several reasons. One is that official documents often have a built-in way of not capturing women's work because they were seen through the eyes of men, and men's vision of what work was very often excluded the kinds of activities that women did that were very productive. Men were often away from home also when women did that work. So if we only look at official documents, we miscount much of female labour force participation, and we miss many of the productive contributions that women made. But women also, of course, often only worked part-time, or they were at particular jobs. They did lots of different jobs. Economic historians would call this the economy of makeshifts. They put together a collective wage from lots of different activities. So they weren't defined as a weaver or a mason or a farm labourer. They had lots of particular activities that they did.
Mm-hmm. Then, in that way, we can we say that the economic history is wrong?
I think economic history is incomplete since it misses out the experience of half the population, at least. But it's also likely to be misleading because if we're going to systematically undercount women, given that they were represented in certain sectors of the economy, they clustered there, we're going to misrepresent structural change as the nature of their work changed over time. So, for example, women tended to be clustered in services and in manufacturing activities. Hand spinning, for instance, was the largest single manufacturing activity right across Europe in the early modern period. So when we get the invention of factories and spinning machinery and that hand occupation disappears, segments of the population become very unemployed at very short order. And of course, we could even see this as deindustrialization in certain areas. So we misrepresent structural change, and we also very often misrepresent growth rates. If, for example, women move between the market and unpaid work, which is nonetheless productive, then of course that's going to underestimate or misestimate growth rates over time.
Mm-hmm. And is it possible to include the non-salary work of the women in the reports?
This is what Lourdes Benarea, a very distinguished Spanish development economist, has referred to as the enduring debate, because it's been widely recognized for long periods of time that although unpaid work in the home is not regarded as part of national income, that this is an anomaly. Pigou, a famous political economist of the early 20th century in Britain, pointed out that if he married his housekeeper, national income would fall, even though she was doing exactly the same things. But because she was no longer being paid for doing those things, that would not be recorded, measured as productive work. So we have this problem, how to include this activity, these kinds of activities, which are productive and very important to human well-being. So there have been various efforts to try and capture and value this work. So the UN has made moves in the direction of including women's work of this kind in national income accounts. Historically, this is quite difficult to do. We try and do it sometimes by looking at imputing a wage to a woman working in the home that she would have earned if she'd worked in the market. So we might take the wages of a maid and assign that wage to women's activities in the home. But what I'm going to talk about tonight is a different way of trying to capture women's unpaid work in the home, and that is by looking at what people paid for board and lodging, what they paid for essentially the value added that women undertake, women provide, when they turn a basket of goods into a standard of living. And that's very, very difficult to do convincingly, but it's so important if we're really going to capture living standards over time.
Okay, thank you.